Good evening. We're starting the regular meeting of Hopewell Borough Council on March 20th, 2025. Reggie, if you want to do the sunshine statement?
Both on the bulletin board in Borough Hall and following the borough clerk is required by law.
And flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kennedy?
Here.
Lemmings? Here. Weaver? Here. Steeler? Yes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, here.
Here.
All right.
Is Anthony not?
He's going to be about 15 minutes after we start.
I'm gonna ask if I can-
Take a motion on our agenda for our executive session.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm noting here, for those watching online, we expect to resume the meeting at 7 o'clock with the next part of our public part of the agenda. Until then, we will be retiring to get legal advice from our attorneys, and then we'll turn at 7. All right, thank you. Those of you watching online, we're about to start the public portion of the meeting in a few minutes. We're opening up the doors here now, and I'm going to mute back in a second, but we'll be starting shortly. All right, good evening, everyone, on Zoom and in person. Welcome back to the regular March 20th meeting of the Hopewell Borough Council. For those of you who were not on the beginning part of Zoom, council just finished about an hour executive session with our attorney, getting some legal advice. And now we're starting on item 5, which is resuming the public portion of our meeting. As we have with all of our meetings over the last year plus, and this is really one reason we're here tonight, to give an update on the potential sale of our water system. So later tonight, we'll likely have a motion to approve the terms of a contract with New Jersey American Water so that those terms could become public. We can't do it until that happens. And those terms can then be shared with the community to start approximately a 6-month process of the state BPU and the state approving the contract, and for as much time as possible for our community to absorb, understand, and come to a decision in advance of the November 2025 general election, where likely the question of whether this sale to New Jersey American should be approved. And that'll be on the general ballot, the general election ballot in November, as a ballot question for all voters in Hopewell Borough. The Water Committee, our professionals, have been working very hard for the last year plus, but certainly the last month since our last meeting, to work through a terms of a contract based on their bid, in terms that if council finds them satisfactory, we would advance to the next stage this evening. That would mean we would get to share them with the community. The plan would be, if that happens tonight, we would briefly go over them this evening, post the contract on the website tomorrow with some information about it, and again, start the process of the state reviewing and ultimately our community between now and November, getting information and educating themselves and us about whether these particular terms are the right ones for our community. Before we open up to the public, I'll leave it to anyone else have any particular update or piece they'd like to add to that summary?
just that we're going to be adding information over time in the next few months to the website having to do with this. We're going to be having public outreach sessions. There are going to be various presentations. We'll be putting copies of those presentations on the website. We're working on an FAQ document on the website. There's a 4-page document that's still under review that we're hoping to post when the contract is posted, hopefully tomorrow. That just provides context and background, like, more or less the kinds of things that that the mayor's been describing at the beginning of the meetings, but, how did we get here and what are the next stages? And, it'll be a process. We have several months to do this. We're going to have plenty of opportunities for public discussion. We're going to keep adding information to the website. And part of the advantage of that is that people can then review that information and go through it and digest it on their own time and their own schedule instead of having to kind of absorb it all during meetings. And as we get questions from people, we'll respond to those, and the FAQ document will be a living thing. We'll keep adapting and providing more information as people request it. We're still doing it. We're kind of updating our technical and fiscal analysis that we've been doing now for 2 years on just what the implications of keeping the water system would be, all the financial aspects of it, the engineering aspects of it, repairs that we would need to do. And also a very deep dive into the issue of rates, both our rates historically and projected future rates, current rates, as well as rates of New Jersey American, past and present. And all of that we're going to be adding in one form or another to our website. It's a work in progress, but we're going to get information to you out as soon as we can. And again, provide lots of opportunities for comment and discussion.
2 other, quick notes. When the contract is posted, it'll be a little peculiar that it'll say draft on it. So it is not signed by any of the parties. The next step in this process is to essentially ratify the terms by council so that then the state can review them. So the document that you will see will say draft for some time period until the state has approved it, until the voters approve it, at which point, if all those things happen, the draft part of it would be removed. The other thing that's been kind of challenging and perplexing for us, but a necessary part of this process, is that at the end of last year, the borough issued a RFQ, request for qualifications, where we had 3 water companies present their qualifications and qualify as potential bidders. We then issued a RFP, or request for proposals, where those companies provided their proposals. In January, and this was tough for us, we looked at those as a governing body, chose the one that council thought was most advantageous, both the price, rates, commitment to service, commitment to capital improvements for our borough, and chose New Jersey American. It will not be until we take this next step that we can, and this is quite frustrating for us, share what those terms even are. So we're here tonight to get to those next steps so that we have something to put out to the community so that it could be absorbed, reviewed, understood, and thought about between now and November. So, absent anything else, our next item, we're happy to open up for our first, I'll open the meeting to the public. Mayor Council will take comments first from members of the public attending in person, and then from members of the public attending via Zoom. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. We can't take immediate action on any public comment issue. If you to make a comment or ask a question during the meeting via Zoom, push that raise hand button, and when we get to the Zoom part, we will recognize you and move you over. If you're in person, come up to the front, state your name. We don't need your addresses anymore, and address the council. So thank you. Okay, thank you.
I find this whole water thing as confusing as the development thing, because there's so many different excuse me, layers that we have to go through. Basically, is this what you're proposing, just saying we're in negotiations, we're under no commitment to do anything?
Essentially, we've been negotiating, and the results of the negotiations would be unveiled later tonight of what terms that we were able to get from New Jersey American to move forward. But yes,
So, and when it says things like, you had successful negotiations with them, okay, I get that now. And it says 2/3 of the authorized membership, does that mean that some people, is everybody for it?
well,
We'll find out.
we'll find out in a few minutes, but that just means that this particular type of vote, and that happens to be a majority of the board. In other governing bodies, it's a little bit different,
Right.
but we would need 4 votes of those here just to pass it anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
And then I have 2 other questions that aren't related to that. The house that's falling down.
Uh,
It's falling down, guys, what's going on?
It is, I have been in contact with the owner. I would prefer to not be more specific than that rather than prejudice what's happening there. But my request to you or to anyone that's concerned about that particular property, who shares that concern, or any other in the borough, to please forward that complaint to our administrator, health department. Yes, because the bigger of a file that we have, the easier it is for us to take action. And without being more specific, I'll just say that
Condemned, is it, there's been, I'm not saying we want it condemned, that's a whole other nightmare, but it is, I mean,
uh,
it is condemned.
it is not the only way, but I'll just say our experience recently with problem properties is that the more information we have, the bigger a file, the more complaints there are about it, the easier it is for our professionals and staff to take action.
Okay, so anybody besides, the administrator and the health department?
In this case, I would say construction and zoning perhaps too, Doug, is that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's driving me bonkers. And lastly, as I'm gonna ask at every single meeting, where are we with Hopewell 57? I know, Ryan, you can't say anything, but has been anything, the planning board went, well, no, they're just doing paperwork.
We're waiting for a site plan application. We haven't seen one. That's the next stage. Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone, David Waldman, borough resident. I'm gonna read something, if I may, on behalf of a newly formed group of borough residents, calling ourselves the Hopewell Borough Public Water Alliance. My name's David Waldman. I'm speaking on behalf of the Alliance. As residents, we understand that our water supply is an essential public good. It's an asset, once privatized, that can never be reclaimed. We believe that our shared resource should remain public now and for future generations, and not belong to a for-profit entity. Last summer, 230 more or less residents signed a petition requesting a referendum demonstrating clearly that our community values transparency and informed decision-making. Many of those residents also voiced their concerns at the public meeting last summer. Yet we wonder how our residents can responsibly vote on this critical issue without first understanding and considering all viable alternatives. We are here tonight because we are deeply concerned that the Borough Council is committed exclusively to selling our water system to New Jersey American Water, because it may be an easier option without fully exploring or presenting alternative solutions. And while selling the water system may provide an influx of cash today, we will lose control of an invaluable asset and resource forever and suffer all the known disadvantages of privatized for-profit water. With this in mind, we respectfully urge the council to work collaboratively with the community to actively pursue available grants and alternative funding sources to make our water system whole. The borough already has an approved $2.35 million state grant designated to improve the current operating well and to bring a second well online with PFAS and arsenic remediation, funding that we risk losing entirely if the system is sold. In addition, other communities such as Rocky Hill have successfully engaged grant writing professionals to secure substantial financial support for infrastructure improvements. We ask the council to prioritize transparency, financial diligence, and open dialogue. Let us explore together the path of repairing and maintaining our water system through strategic use of grants, bonds, and careful financial planning, rather than taking the irreversible step of privatization. We are ready and eager to collaborate with you, which means finding alternative solutions. Thank you for the opportunity to explain our position. We look forward to ongoing discussions about this very important issue. Thank you. One more, if I'm within the 5 minutes, I hope I am.
Okay.
I had one more thing, it'll maybe take 30 seconds. I don't know if it's possible, but I would really love an opportunity to sit with whoever is responsible for literally preparing the quarterly water ratepayer bills and see how it's done. Literally, I know it's probably painful. I'm somewhat qualified in that I've been running significant businesses most of my life. So I know how to read, I know how to do spreadsheets, I understand accounting principles. But I'm just wondering if that's something I could possibly do, where I could sit down and literally watch what numbers are put into the formula. How do you literally arrive at the quarterly bill that comes to my house or anybody else's house? In other words, an open disclosure of those calculations, not for any reason other than I want to understand it. At the last couple meetings back, we saw the restaurant people, and that's like, I don't have much hair left, but I'm scratching my head going, how do we explain this? Because it seemed like, if I'm not mistaken, that it baffled some of those of you who weren't quite able to understand or explain how there was a huge bill quarterly for some of these commercial users. So I don't expect a response immediately, but I would love, most of you know how to contact me, I would really love to know if I could literally sit down with somebody who's responsible for that and understand that process. Thank you so much.
We'll be in touch, certainly. I'll say and we'll have to scope out how that conversation worked. I mean, the bills themselves are done by a vendor and a function of a meter read number times a rate that we set. But I think your question is well beyond that, and we can set up something to figure out how to discuss that.
You can put the line items that are entered into it, the basis of the calculations.
And actually, that's in the ordinance. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at the ordinance, it describes the rate levels and how it's priced.
Yeah, I'm not.
But that's all the rate formula is. So in other words, but I mean, happy to talk about
Yeah.
it, but that's literally, like, if I'm doing calculations on it on myself, I don't do the billing.
Yeah.
You literally know if it's this much for the first 2,000 gallons, 2 to 5,000, it's this per thousand. It's just a chain of
Right.
rates applied to different,
I mean, part of me says that perhaps there is an error somewhere.
no,
That.
Well,
no.
we'll
Well,
look into that. Yes,
I'd like to
yes.
hear about the rest of it.
Yeah,
at some
yeah,
point.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that I'd happy to talk to you
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
and thank you.
I appreciate it, sure.
Anyone else in person, or I don't see any hands online, please push the raised hand button on Zoom if you'd like to be recognized on the Zoom. Seeing none, Ms. Sabrina, come on up. Mhm.
I guess three things. The first is, when this comes to the vote in November, is what the community votes, that's the decision?
The statute says that essentially this contract could move forward if it's approved by the state and the voters. If it doesn't, the contract can't move forward. Yep.
The other thing is, for somebody who's been around town for a long time, it's because of David that we have a lot of really cool open space around here. He spearheaded the movement to save the Ruling Track. So for those of you who haven't been here all that long, he's really an important person in the community. And also decades ago, there was a council meeting where it was proposed that we put fluoride in our water. and the decision was made not to put fluoride in the
Mhm.
water. An American Water Company puts fluoride in the water. And I just wanted to know if you do get into contract with them. I'm a retired dental hygienist. I don't want fluoride in the water for lots of good reasons. Do we have a say in that?
David, do you want, is that something you want to address, or do you want to wait till
Um,
after we get to the contract part of things?
Well, I'll say this, so they fluoridate their water, we don't fluoridate the water from the well, which means right now you're getting a mix of fluoridated and unfluoridated water. I don't see a scenario under which you would not have fluoridated water from them because we're connected into their system. We'd be part of the Raritan system. I, I, I know people have various opinions about fluoridation. Right now, I would rely on the US EPA and the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and what their determinations are as to what's healthy and what's safe. I would argue that it's better to have either a fluoridated system or a non-fluoridated system instead of what we have now, which is this half and half. You don't know how much you're getting. So, I mean, if somebody's trying to figure out what the dosage should be
Right.
and they don't really know, it seems that's probably a worse situation. I mean, I know that, there's been recent articles lately about various concerns related to fluoride. I think that science is still evolving on that. And it probably will be for a long time. I'm not a public health expert. I will just say that I have a great deal of confidence in the NJDEP and their determinations on the health and safety of drinking water. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
so we would have no control, basically, is what you're telling us.
Well, we would all be part of the same system. In other words, they would, it-
So in our discussions with
Yeah.
New Jersey American, I'll say they don't have a position on fluoride.
Right.
And generally, I understand, leave it up to the communities. Now, we would be part of a larger community.
Right.
But ultimately, they don't have a position one way or the other on it. It happens to be that the Raritan system that we're attached to is fluoridated. But my understanding from talking to them is not necessarily because that's what they want so much as what the overall community is. To your point, though, I think
Right.
you're probably correct that we've become part of a larger community that would jointly make that decision rather than a small one.
And the other side, so part of this depends on, in the future, on what happens with wells number 4 and 6. And there's an explanation, a fact sheet that we're going to be putting out with the contract. But one of the things that New Jersey American is proposing to do is a complete engineering analysis of the whole system. And part of that is looking at what the future need is for operating wells 4 and 6, which are relatively small wells compared to their overall production. So if you continue to have local water produced from those wells, in addition to water coming in from outside, I'm not sure what the answer would be in terms of fluoridation. They might decide not to operate those wells in the future, in which case all the water is going to be coming from their system, which is a mixture of well water and surface water. But those are kind of system, but that's something that we'll explore with them. Again, as Ryan said, I know they don't take a particular position on it. And what I don't know is, since those things, fluoride and other additives are injected sort of locally, the way chlorination is done. So I don't know to what extent that's regional or to what extent you can control it, but we'll ask the question. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
I just have a question to follow up on that.
Mhm.
Then maybe I wasn't. So the council at one point voted that we will have fluoride in our water?
No,
Yes,
No.
yes.
no, we didn't vote to have fluoride in our water. No, we,
Councilperson Priscilla Hunt, it was decades ago.
we've never fluoridated this water system.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you why,
So-
because
so
we,
let's say-
yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't anything that voted on, it just acknowledged that there wasn't gonna be fluoride.
council decided not to do it.
Yeah, and I'll give a quickly background on it. So this was within my tenure early on. There were people that were urging us to actually fluoridate the water. There were some parents who were saying, why aren't you fluoridating the water? I think this is before we were even on with New Jersey American, and we looked into it as a possibility. And it turns out it's fairly expensive to do, and it's done with hydrofluoric acid, which is quite dangerous to handle. And we just decided it was logistically not possible, and so that kind of ended the discussion. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Betsy Keller. I live on Hart Avenue. And I am also joining as of tonight this organization that David was representing. I'd like to second what Lori Saporito was saying about concerns about fluoride. I believe it's the case, and Lori, you can probably weigh in on this, that fluoride was first introduced into water systems in order to reduce cavities in people's teeth. Is that your understanding?
That's what.
And so I think we all know that there are lots of better and more effective ways that one can use to reduce cavities in your teeth besides having it in everybody's water, even the water of people who don't want it in their water. And I certainly don't want it in my water. And thank you for pointing this out, because I wouldn't have known that otherwise. Because now you have the option to buy toothpaste, of course, that has fluoride or doesn't have fluoride in it. I always choose without fluoride because I've heard a lot of bad things about it over the years. For the young people here who may have no clue about this, it was when I was a kid that I remember hearing about fluoride is gonna help y'all. Well, maybe not so much. Yes, I don't think so. So please, consider this issue. It seems like, we're gonna have fluoride if we go with American Water, which it seems like most of the folks on the council are intent on having happen. I don't fully grasp why. I admit I haven't listened to every word of every minute of the meetings on it, but some of them I have, and it's concerning to me, very concerning. I'd like to know why we can't consider some of the options like that Rocky Hill was recently did with their water system. This may have been thoroughly already rehashed in meetings, but it's concerning to me. And so that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you know us in person, we do have someone on Zoom. Elizabeth, I will do my darndest to promote you. Give me 1 second here. Takes a second for you to come over. All right, Elizabeth, if you could unmute yourself and turn on your camera. The floor is yours. You're muted and your camera's off. If you could hit those 2 buttons, we'll be able to hear and see you. I'll give you another minute. Unfortunately, as the Zoom moderator, I have many powers. Unfortunately, to unmute you and to turn your camera on are not among them. So they're authorized, but I can't. So we'll give you a few more minutes, and we'll note that we will have another public comment section probably just in a few minutes, and we could try you again then. But unfortunately, at the moment, we can't see or hear you. Oh, you've unmuted. Can you hear us? There we go. Well, hold on. If you can hear us, pause 1 second. We unfortunately are not able to hear you. I'm gonna see if I can fix that. Give me 1 second with apologies. Try speaking again. I think we're having a technical difficulty with you with my apologies. There seems to be some problem with your microphone.
Okay.
There we go.
Well,
How about,
with apologies that you're coming in kind of quietly, I've keep speaking, and we'll all promise to be very quiet in the room so we can
Well, I can speak with my loud voice.
appreciate it. Thank you. We can hear you.
Okay. My question has to do with the pay schedule. Is that something that is negotiated, or is that something that the American Water people dictate?
You mean the rates?
The reason I ask this is that my sister lives in a town that went with American Water, and the rate basically was not drastically different in that town. However, instead of getting one bill every 3 months, she gets a bill every month, which means she is paying the administrative costs 3 times as much as she was before.
Hmm.
And I wondered whether that has been part of the contract discussion about the billing.
So I'll try to take this and I'm going to look at our attorney. I assume it's okay to go into this type of question, even though these details will be, become public in a few minutes if they're, okay, all right. One, yes, New Jersey American does bill monthly rather than quarterly. Well, the reason the borough bills quarterly, frankly, is it costs us quite a bit of money to have the 3 people kind of walk around town. It takes like a equivalent of a week's of FTE kind of man hours to do it. So we only could do it every quarter, every 3 months. They do bill monthly and read the meters much more often than we have been able to do. That's their regular practice. And their rates are set by what's called a tariff. They send in with the state. So there's a filing of what their rates are. And this is part of it. How often they bill is part of that. And their practice is monthly. Though I think in our discussions with them, we believe that their overhead for them doing it monthly is, maybe I don't want to editorialize. They do it monthly, whereas we do it quarterly, and it takes our people quite a bit of time to do it. I'll say that.
So that's automatically going to increase the bill. It has to.
And could I explain a little bit?
Please.
So the bills generally have 2 components, and we're going to be putting out a lot of information on this, but generally, if you look at and our rate structure has 2 components too. But normally you have a fixed fee that everybody pays for each bill. In our case, we pay that every quarter, which is almost $60. And then there's a fee that you pay per gallon. In our case, if you're using more than 2,000 gallons, you pay a fee per 1,000 gallons. So New Jersey American and the other utilities have a similar system where there's a fixed fee that you pay, in this case, in a month. It's a smaller fee than we would charge for a quarter. I mean, it's proportionate, right? And then there's a cost per gallon. And that's how they do the billing. They actually, I'll mention just to Ryan's point, if they were to buy the system, they're going to replace the meters. Modern meters you can read remotely. They just drive around town. They could read the whole town in the morning instead of going to everybody's house. But at any rate, it's not really an administrative fee, that fixed fee. It's really, they put a fixed fee in there, and we do the same thing, because you have to have a certain guaranteed revenue stream. People's usage goes up and down with the seasons, and it goes up and down during periods of drought versus periods of heavy rain. So certainly the way we structured our bills, and I think the way other people do, is you have a certain fixed fee that everybody pays, because then you have a guaranteed stream of income. It's really not that there's a lot of administrative work to do preparing the bills, because they're largely automated. Like we do work here. I'm not to say that Reggie doesn't have to do work, but we have a billing service that actually runs the software that does it. So yeah, we have to take some time to enter that stuff into the system. We have to take time to enter it, to read the meters. But I'd say, based on my understanding, I think these larger utilities do it more efficiently because they do it on such a vast scale. So I don't think it's really that you're paying more of an administrative fee, but you are getting billed once a month as opposed to quarterly. There is one advantage to that sometimes, and that is if somebody has a leak in their house, let's say there's a leaking toilet and they don't realize that's going on. If you go through a whole quarter before you see a big spike on your bill, then you get a surprise. If they're billing monthly, there's an advantage, because if there's a problem, you pick up on it sooner. That's just one implication of it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And anything else before we'll have another public comment session? But thank you.
I have one comment, and that relates to American Water, back when it was Elizabethtown water. And that was that I recall during, I think it was Hurricane Hugo, I'm not sure which hurricane, there was a problem that they had up in their Bridgewater plant. And that problem ended up, because there was so much water in the general sewage systems, they ended up having contamination up at the Bridgewater plant, and that affected every town that they serviced, because the water from the street sewer was mixing in with the water that was going to homes. And as a result, every town surrounding Hopewell could not use water for at least a week, and some for 2 weeks. You could not use the water coming out of your tap. The only place that could use water was Hopewell, because we had our own wells. And that sticks in my mind because it was so dramatic. I mean, when I went to choir practice in Princeton, you couldn't drink the water. I had to bring water from Hopewell for the people in Princeton. So that sticks in my mind, and I hope that they have improved their facilities and the management of their facilities since that time, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, one thing I'll comment quickly, it's not specific to New Jersey American, but the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has pretty stringent rules now on what's known as resiliency, which is, everybody has to, now that we're sort of recognizing the challenges of dealing with global climate change and the intensity and frequency of heavy weather. So I'm still learning about this. I was just looking into it today, trying to get a better fix on it, but rules are evolving not only on water supply, but also on flood control and everything else for the same reason. But I think we've probably come a long way from those days. It doesn't mean it's not possible to have some catastrophic event that affects the water supply. But I think in the last couple of decades, I think those vulnerabilities are better known, and now people are having to prepare for, shall we say, if you think about it, during Hurricane Sandy, right, the extremity of that event, and now a lot of the emergency preparation is based on that level of emergency, which we hadn't experienced before. So it's not to say that there's no possibility of it, but, and again, I'm still learning on this, but it does, my understanding, I have a certain confidence, I think, that the NJDEP, which regulates all these facilities, is holding people's feet to the fire on that very issue. But it's a very important point you made.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, I'm going to sign you back as a regular panelist, and hopefully not accidentally make you the host of this meeting, which is right next to become a regular panelist. So thank you. We just check our list one more time. Not seeing anyone here in person or anyone online. I'll take a motion to close the first of two public comment sessions. Deb first. Have a second? Anthony, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. So the next item on our agenda is motion 2025-51, which would approve, and when we say approve, advance. It does not go into effect unless there is both state approval and voter approval in November. But to advance a proposed contract with New Jersey American Water. Do I have a motion?
Yes, so moved.
David, do I have a second? Sherry, thank you. We'll do a roll call, but I'll ask Lisa, we have a brief summary of the terms after the vote would be appropriate?
It's up to you if you want to put on the record what the terms are in advance of the vote.
That'd be a good idea to discuss it if we could.
Up to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and make sure I have so many screens here. So just the quick highlights, and again, our goal here tonight is to advance us to the next phase so that we can share the document with our community and the terms and more information starting tomorrow. Literally, we'll post on our website, and then
And regulators.
Yes, and the regulars, and start the education and discussion process in our community over the next multiple months until November. But ultimately, the highlights are New Jersey American has agreed upon closing to disconnect well number 4 and bring the borough's water supply immediately into compliance with NJDEP standard for PFOS, which satisfies the emergent condition that we had with our water system. New Jersey American has agreed to immediately on closing implement what they call Water Rate Schedule A, which will provide for significant rate relief. That's the schedule that Princeton and Montgomery residents pay. These New Jersey American water rates will match those currently in place of neighboring communities like Princeton and Montgomery. New Jersey American has agreed to invest at least $7 million in the water system over the first 5 years of ownership. These costs are spread across the entirety of New Jersey American's ratepayers and not just Hopewell Borough residents. New Jersey American has agreed to purchase the system for $6.4 million. They have agreed to improve the water storage system, primarily the reservoir is the biggest part of that, within the first 5 years of ownership. We'll note that they have to comply with requirements to remove all lead goosenecks and galvanized water lines by 2031 without additional cost allocated to the borough or its customers. New Jersey American will refund the borough up to $150,000 for our costs in putting this sale together for our professionals. Next steps, as required by what we call WIPA, the Water Infrastructure Protection Act, the contract, though it'll say draft, will be submitted to New Jersey Board of Public Utilities and the Division of Local Government Services in the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs for their review and is subject to their approvals prior to us being in a position to sign the contract. Following approval by the state, the terms of the contract would be presented to Hopewell Borough voters in the November 2024 general election for approval. The draft contract between Hopewell Borough and New Jersey American Water will be posted to the borough website beginning tomorrow, March 21st, 2025, and that literally will be me doing that, so I will be sure that that happens. More detailed information regarding the contract terms will be posted on the borough's website and provided at upcoming meetings throughout the coming months. We encourage people to visit the website frequently, and if you haven't, please sign up for the borough's weekly email notice. These are the type of things that will be in those emails, agendas for meetings, as well as information about the water sale. So those are the basic terms. We have a motion. Absent any other motion, I'll ask for a roll call.
Ms. Blaze? Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. I want to first, thank our professionals and council. This is, again, just the beginning of a long process. We've been at this for about a year, working to bring an option to put forward to the community. It's not everyone's first choice on this dais to even have this option, but a lot of work went into it, and we are looking forward to the discussion ahead about whether this is the right path for Hopewell Borough or keeping the system as the right path. With that, we'll open the meeting to the public for our second public comment section. This one, try to limit to 3 minutes per person, but we do our best to listen and accommodate everyone, even if you've already spoken before. So if you're here in person, please go up to the front. If you're on Zoom, look for that raise hand button, and we will recognize you and bring you over as a panelist.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tom Masters. I had a question on the numbers. You said you're gonna sell the system for 6.4,
6.4.
and they're gonna invest 7.
Yes,
So that's 13.4 million total.
correct.
What kind of payback time do you think they want?
Well,
I don't want to editorialize about how rates work, but ultimately, if you remember when we started this process, one of the stages of the process where we had a report done by Phoenix Advisors, they're our financial consultant. They did essentially an appraisal that had a range of values, and there are several different ways to look at how a system like ours might be valued. I'll be honest, I've kind of backed into understanding that perhaps, well, how do I put this? Their ability and need to make capital investments in our system is generally a positive for a utility. Whereas, and I'm looking at our attorney, I want to be very careful. We had a nice lesson before this about advocacy, and I want to do my darndest to make sure I'm not advocating for something. But generally, built into their rate structure is a return on investment that they've made, that they've essentially have been charging even in their rates that are lower than ours across the state ratepayers. And ultimately, they are able to put that amount of money both in cash and in capital investments into us without directly charging our customers for it, as it is ultimately spread out across the entire state.
Right.
And I hate to look at it as a grant, but if we were to, when we have our roads paved, we often get grants from the state, and it is a tax that everyone in the state pays, and every once in a while we get a piece out of it. Ultimately, it is that.
Yeah, but if you take 13 million, 13 plus, and you smear that out over 10 years, that's like $1,700 per connection.
Mhm.
That's more than $400 per quarter. I don't pay more than $400 a quarter. I pay way less, you know? So that's a big investment for that company,
Mhm.
and they want their money back. So how is this gonna work?
Well,
You
so,
think that Princeton is gonna pick up the bill for that?
no. And
Well-
I'll tell you how, let me explain a couple of things. So the way this works is that those costs are spread out across all of their ratepayers. There's no special assessment permitted in this kind. It's not like they come back and they say, well, Hopewell, you're costing us X. I can't remember how many ratepayers they have in the state, but it's a lot. And the other thing is that the Board of Public Utilities, well, actually the legislature, there are rates that are approved that are part of the charges that they have that are specifically addressed toward infrastructure costs. So there's a specific surcharge, and all the utilities do this. The lead service line law, the actual legislation says that they have to recover those costs from their ratepayers, but they spread it across all the ratepayers. So there's lots of communities that don't have lead service lines at all. Everybody pays a share. So there's a surcharge actually appears on the bill as a lead service line surcharge. And that has a defined period of time. And they literally go to the BPU every 6 months and they say, we've spent X number of $1 million on lead service lines across the state. And they file this huge document. And this is what we want to charge for the next 6 months. And they spread it out across all the ratepayers, and the BPU approves it or doesn't approve it. And they go through that twice a year. They do this.
Willing to put that on paper, but
Oh, they have to. No,
Yeah.
no, it's all by regulation. And then there's another charge called a distribution system improvement charge, which works the same way. And each time they have to do this like 200-page foundation filing that says, this is the justification for this, and the BPU goes through and reviews the whole thing, and it's all baked into actually the regulations. So that's how a lot of that money is recovered. But it's also, as I understand it, and this is not specific to New Jersey American, it could be any of the utilities. They're spreading the rates across all their ratepayers. So they have some areas where they have relatively new systems. They don't have a lot of aging issues. They don't have what we have, 110 or 120-year-old system. So by their ability to do that, they're spreading the risk and the financial costs across. So it's good for communities that have a lot of aging infrastructure. Maybe it's not so good for communities that don't, because they're paying into it.
second question I have, does American Water have the intention to build a big through line here to go to other towns beyond us?
We don't have any information about that right now. The connection that we have with them is a 6-inch connection. I don't know what the size of the main is from here going east. It might be 6 inch. all they've said, and it's actually acknowledged in this contract, is that they're going to do bless you, do a comprehensive engineering analysis of the whole system and, make a determination of exactly how they're going to prioritize the infrastructure improvements. I'll tell you that, certainly on our list, high priority of capital improvements that we have to do is replacing some or preferably all of the main along Broad Street. Because particularly the West Broad Street part, which has become a real problem. It's not that old, actually, 1950s, but but they didn't commit to the specifics of the capital improvements other than they said $7 million over 5 years, but there's a time frame on that. It's not just $7 million. They're expecting to spend more, but that's for their engineering and operational people to figure out. I've always been told, engineers have always told me, if you're going to put in a pipe, you size the pipe based on whatever you think your future needs are going to be, right? It's basic principle. So that's all I know.
And just to add to that, our role as a borough is almost agnostic to that either way. For example, New Jersey American, they're connected to us, but also are connected to the former Bristol Myers Squibb site in Pennington and along that street as well. And ultimately, even with our own water system, they're free to make their own way around us essentially and kind of have, particularly in that connection towards Pennington.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't see any other hands online or anyone else in person. I'll take a motion to close the second public comment section of the evening. Do I have a second? All right, Heidi, thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
That is it for our agenda this evening. For those of you who follow what we're doing, which is all of you, so thank you for being here, by the way. Our next meeting, as I might have said at the beginning, we have set many regular meetings. I don't want to be too technical about what's a special or regular meeting, but we set at the beginning of the year 2 meetings a month because we know we have a lot to do. Our next meeting is April 3rd. That happens to be in the first Thursday time slot that we're all used to. But we are keeping multiple dates in each month, and our planning board is too. Every month we may not use them, but ultimately between affordable housing, working on our water system, and a lot of other pressing issues, the people on both sides of this table have a lot of work to do, and we will continue to keep those dates. Probably use most of them. Definitely use the next one in April 3rd as our next meeting. But please, I'll make another pitch for our email system. If you got an email on Sunday with the agenda for this meeting, you've signed up and you're in the right place, and you're in the right place otherwise. But if you didn't get that email, please go to our website. There's a banner at the top, sign up. Almost every week, there's an email with everything that was posted to the website. And weeks like this, where there are public meetings, there is kind of a digest of and copies of the agenda so you can know what's going on. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone, in person and online. And I'm going to just keep talking until I confirm that we're offline.